can you tell us about the Baptist history in this period?
Okay. There are many things to tell you about First Baptist Church, but what I'm going to tell you is strictly what happened during the Civil War. After the pastor left in something like 1861, Reverend J.P. Kefauver became pastor. That name sounds familiar. Actually, Estes Kefauver was I believe I'm great-great-grandson of this pastor. He was married to Nancy Cook, a daughter of a Dr. Cook in Madisonville, Tennessee. And they moved to Chattanooga in 1861, where he was in charge of the church. And he remained there until forced to leave on account of the war, when the place became a battleground. And I believe he went to his wife's father's home and spent the war there. Sometime between 1852 and 1860, a one-ton brass bell had been placed in the belfry of the church, something the congregation was very proud of. Then came the war, and the advancing Union Army brought fear into the hearts of the small congregation, for they had heard that soldiers were raiding church towers and confiscating brass bells to melt into ammunition. Someone suggested they paint the bell black, and perhaps it would fool the Union Army, which was not usable for bullets. This worked. In September 1863, when the Army occupied Chattanooga, the church building was taken over, but the bell remained in the belfry. And this is a picture of the bell. It's a First Baptist still. I won't go into all the background, that's another story. You will have to read A Light on the Hill, which is the church history, that someday will get published. Okay. It was Friday, August 21st, the day when Jefferson Davis had asked for fasting and prayer. Soldiers and civilians were assembled in the Presbyterian church. A visiting minister was praying when the shells began falling. Within a short time, the town was transformed. Every train left filled with civilians. The local newspaper, the Chattanooga Rebel, wrote that it was about the only public institution, the paper, left in the almost deserted and once proud city of Chattanooga. The Union Army occupied Chattanooga September the 9th, 1863. The Baptist church building, like most other churches, was taken over by invading forces. Many, if not most, of the citizens had left town, among them a man named Foley Vaughn. As a Union man, a personal friend of Abraham Lincoln, he had tried to save the church from being used as a hospital, made several trips to Washington at his own expense, but was unsuccessful. And by this time, there was practically no one left. There was no one left in the church. The church practically evaporated for that period of several years. And during that time, when the building was taken over, any records that had been made were lost. So there's no records whatsoever of that period. And I'm not sure how we ever got all the information we have, but we do have some information. The building used as a hospital was badly damaged by misused shot and shell and left in ruins. After the war ended, while military occupation continued, the building was used as a post chapel. The state of Tennessee was readmitted to the Union in 1866. With the end of conflict, Foley Vaughn returned. held weekly prayer meetings at the home of his daughter. The church had ceased to exist, as I said. Through his efforts, the scattered forces were brought together and succeeded in getting possession of the ruined building from the government. The members were practically destitute after the war, so Vaughn mortgaged his property in order to have the church repaired. As members returned, the church was reorganized, with Vaughn serving in a leadership role. He secured a minister, acted as the janitor. He went to the church each Sunday morning to build a fire if necessary and to see that everything was in order. He would ring the warning bell and go home to dress in his Sunday best. Promptly at 9:30, he would again ring the bell to begin Sunday school and would welcome the members as they arrived. He also kept in his home the remaining communion pitcher, chalice, and plate from a gift sent to the church from the Charleston, South Carolina First Baptist Church in 1854. And one chalice and one plate from the collection were lost. Claims for damage to the church building were made against the government, but it was not until many years later, while Newell Sanders was serving as a U.S. Senator, with the assistance of the church treasurer, that the claim was paid. And then we have something that's a little different. In researching, there is a Kefauver biography. And according to this, Reverend Kefauver returned at the end of the war as pastor and in company with Dr. J.R. Graves, who was a Baptist leader. They attended the General Convention of Baptists meeting in Chicago and was invited to make a statement before that body on the condition of Baptist affairs in Tennessee, particularly in Chattanooga. When he had made his talk, the convention with one accord voted to furnish money with which to reseat and repair the house of worship for the Chattanooga Brethren. The house was repaired, and Reverend Kefauver served as pastor until the death of his father-in-law, which made it necessary for him to turn over the work of rebuilding Baptist interest in Chattanooga to other hands in order to take charge of a large farm and business which had been willed to his wife. The first recorded church meeting was held Saturday, November the 9th, 1866. Reverend J.P. Kefauver was moderator. The recorded meetings are spasmodic and brief. Either the meetings were short or the clerk did not hear anything significant to report. Either the meetings were short. For most meetings, reports in those early days were truly only one or two sentences long. The church met, there was no business before the church, so the meeting was adjourned. I wish all meetings were like that.
My mea culpa this morning was that I discovered that Cumberland Presbyterian, in our zeal to be ecumenical, we neglected following up with Cumberland Presbyterian, but this could have been the best recovery and the most graceful response. Sam, come on up. Sam Quattrochi, an attorney here in town, very much a lay leader in Cumberland Presbyterian. Not only was I embarrassed that I was telling him this morning about this event, but I was doubly embarrassed because David Cooper had already reminded me that an ancestor of mine was the co-founder of Cumberland Presbyterian and was a founding elder of then of First Presbyterian as well. That was Alan Kennedy, one of the first commissioners of Chattanooga. So I had much to recover from, and Sam helped me do it, but we learned of something really extraordinary. I won't say we've saved the best for last, but don't leave until you've heard this story. Sam is carrying a rather large Bible, and there is definitely a story to be told here.
Thank you. Most of y'all know, if y'all know Cumberland Presbyterian, it's a church out in Brainerd across from Boyd Buchanan School with a nice swimming pool.
And a great youth program.
And a great youth program, exactly. I belong with my wife, the youth director there. But I became interested in local history when I was in law school, University of Iowa. While wandering through the stacks of the law library, bored out of my mind, came across a college, or a collection of college books regarding moved back to Chattanooga, had been a member of First Cumberland before I left for law school, came back and rejoined and started looking into what we had. Learning about the history, I came across in our library, and most of my information comes from this book. It's a book called A Presbytery Called Chattanooga. It's a history of the Chattanooga Presbytery, the Cumberland Presbyterian Church, 1842 to 1989. Not a very well written book. I'm not very impressed with it, but it has a lot of facts and it's very useful to me. So what I'm giving to you, most of the information came from this book. Some of y'all more seasoned local history folks might call me on some of this, and I welcome any information about it. According to information, First Cumberland was organized initially May 2nd, 1841. I believe they might have been one of the churches maybe meeting in the woodshed there, Mr. Hawley. I'm not sure about that. But they were organized by Hugh McGill and Allen Kennedy were two of the first organizers of the church. And through their early history, it was get together, organize, they have a congregation, build a building, right? They built a building. They had their first building on Cypress Street, which probably has either buildings or Highway 27 covering where that street used to be, where that location used to be. I want to say, let's see here, I'll tell you exactly when. In 1854, they unofficially reorganized, and then that's when they built their building there on Cypress. In 1858, they built the building at 8th and Chestnut. You can see on the map, right across the street from where St. Paul's was at the time. If you look at the various photographs and maps, I've come across a couple. Some of them place the church building right dead on the corner. The earlier maps have that. Later maps, or at least photographs, show a big rectangular hotel there. And so my best guess is after the war, the original building was probably destroyed either by the forces who used the building or the various floods that came through and hit this part of town. So eventually, though, they built, it looks like a new building next to it, or they moved the street. Because either way, there was enough room at that point to then put a hotel. The name of the hotel escapes me now. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, so I apologize. Getting to what was going on at First Cumberland during the war occupation of the town, the best I can tell was nothing was going on at First Cumberland during the war occupation of the town, which really brings to the Bible. The minister at the time, according to the Gregory history here, as soon as the war broke out, he hightailed it to Georgia because he didn't want to get stuck in the middle of it. And we didn't have as much of a real special use for our building. We were a munitions dump. They had they put their munitions there and didn't use it for any sacred or medicinal purposes. I did find one interesting story. Let's see if I can come across it here. Yes, and maybe this is right or wrong. It says there was an unsuccessful attempt made by a Southern soldier to destroy the Union stockpile of weapons in the church house. His efforts, however, failed, and he was killed in his failed mission. But his failure spared the church, which the flood apparently took care of later on. And incidentally, we sold the was a congregational Bible that apparently was left behind by our cowardly pastor who ran off. And he was it was recovered by, and I brought gloves tonight. Our music director gave me some handbell gloves. This thing's not been very well preserved, I'll tell you that much. It was taken by Hiram Gilmore, who was the chaplain of the 31st Indiana Volunteers. I picked up some information about him recently. Not whole much. I found a picture somewhere online, but I was unable to retrieve it in time for tonight. But Reverend Gilmore inscribed in the inside pages of the Bible. I'll just read it to you. You can look at it. This Bible is taken from the Cumberland Presbyterian Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee, soon after the Battle of Chickamauga, which was fought on the 19th and 20th of September, 1863. The owners of the church had abandoned it and gone south, after which the Federal Army occupied it as a hospital. It says a hospital. The rebels left the Word of God behind in their flight, knowing that its moral precepts condemned them in their treason. There's several underlines as well. This is modern day all caps that you see on the previous all caps. Almost in bold the way that the handwriting is. The soldiers requested me to take charge of this book as it was liable to get destroyed. Hiram Gilmore, Chaplain 31st Indiana Falls. And it's dated March 3rd, looks like 1864. It had to be 64. A little smudge on the last number there. But, so Reverend Gilmore took this back to Indiana, and it stayed in his family until it was returned to our church, I believe, in 1944. We have a little newspaper clipping that we have with it. I didn't bring it tonight, but it's there's a picture of our pastor receiving it back from the family. And, I'm packing up a house right now, and I can't imagine carrying this thing around, even if it's a family heirloom for all those they probably made the right choice of sending it back. And another Civil War piece, not as interesting as this, but we have an old pump organ in our parlor. According to our organist, it also came from the Civil War church. And somehow made it to Atlanta. And then, whoever the owners, I guess they didn't want it anymore, and called us up some time back, and either we bought it or they donated it. We got it back. So it's just collecting dust in the parlor right now, but it still works.
There's his inscription. And the Marion Helms was good enough to retrieve the full newspaper story from the News Free Press in 1944. And 81 years later, someone in the family, maybe their moral precepts, compel them to return the Bible, but the inscription is very much there. This is the kind of stuff that happens when you reach out in the community and put the word out that we're looking for each of you to tell your stories. So thanks to all of you. One footnote, as best I could determine, I looked up the history of the Jewish congregations. There are now multiple in Chattanooga, and the starting date appears to be 1866. In the online history that I found, obviously there were Jewish inhabitants, citizens of Chattanooga earlier, but apparently no organized congregation. But that's one we'd like to catch up with, because those of us in this field believe that anything in the 1860s and into the 70s is really part of Civil War history. Some of you know we had the 150th Tennessee 150th Conference just a couple of weeks ago. The State Tourism Office put that on. 3,000 plus people registered for that. It did occur during the time of the federal shutdown, so visits to the park did not happen, but the scholars who were there, the presentations and panels that occurred were just phenomenal. phenomenal. Jim Ogden was there in his civilian capacity. In his off hours, Mary Helms was there, and many people from the two Friends organizations are here. I want to say thanks to Garnet Chapin for having captured this on videotape. We will find a way to use it in probably chapterizing it with Jim's presentation and then each of these. But Garnet's been great about putting these things online. And I can't thank you enough, Garnet, for your response to, yet again, a good idea, but one I executed on today. All of you who have been part of this, who are from the different churches, please keep doing what you're doing. Please remember that Mary Helms at the Public Library, third floor, local history genealogy section, now has an ultra-high resolution scanner. It's a wonderful piece of equipment. You can take things like these artifacts, these books, these photographs, and create a digital copy that in some ways is easier to look at, and the resolution is so good that you can find things in the copy that you can't sometimes find in the original. But you're also preserving it for your own purposes. It's the ultimate backup. You're allowing the public library to have a copy for scholarship, for more research in this field, and you're sharing it with this community, which is what all that's about. I would like to thank Clint Cooper for covering this for the Times Free Press. I don't know if anyone else, is anyone here from Chattanooga.com? I know John Wilson was very supportive of this and wanted to come. This is everything and we hope for and more, so thanks to all of you. Is there anyone who would like to give a benediction from one of our partner churches? Do we have a volunteer? If not, then may I, on behalf of St. Paul's, do this benediction, and after that we will encourage you. If the nave is still open, those of you who've not seen the Civil War altar that is in the St. George's Chapel of our nave, it needs to be seen. What can some of my St. Paul's friends tell me? Is the nave open? It's not. Surely we're inside the church. It's not locked, right? Yeah, it's open. Please come over and see that, because that is the one surviving piece of architecture in our church today from this period. We're really going light on the St. Paul's history in deference to all the others, but there's a book on this one too. And so, again, I want to thank our own parishioners. Would you bow your heads, please? Lord, thank you for bringing us to this event tonight. More importantly, thank you for giving us the opportunity to live and thrive in a community that values its past, its present, and its future. Bless each of the congregations that work in your name to your glory, and for the work that we do together and individually in our own pursuits. We ask that you allow us to go home safely, and that you will continue to give us your blessings. Amen.
Amen.